Broadcasting from Detroit's Cass Corridor, it's the Metro on WDET. I'm Tia Graham. Coming up, it's Autism Awareness Month. We'll learn about the 6th annual Autism In The D Weekend of Inclusivity, and as well, how do we measure intelligence? One researcher believes it's time to rethink the way we view intelligence. We'll revisit a conversation from the Metro's Carey Jr. II. But first, about 1 in 31 children in the U.S. is now diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. But behind every statistic is a family trying to figure it out in real time, searching for support, resources, and spaces where their children feel understood and included. One Detroit mother hustled harder for more. After her eldest son was diagnosed with autism, Tiera Moultrie saw firsthand just how much was missing for families like hers. So in 2020, she founded Autism In The D with a mission to build community and create safe, inclusive spaces for children on the spectrum and their families. Since its founding, Tiera has had 3 children, 2 living with ASD. And the work she does is personal, but it's about more than her family. Coming up April 11th and April 12th, Autism In The D is hosting its 6th annual Weekend of Inclusivity, one of Detroit's largest autism awareness walks. But it's not just about awareness, it's about access to resources, connection, and making sure families don't feel alone. And this year, the event is also helping push forward something even bigger, the opening of Detroit's first autism-inclusive adaptive kids gym. Joining me now to talk about the journey, the impact, and what this weekend means for families across the city is Tiera Moultrie. Tiera, welcome to the Metro.
Good morning. I'm glad to be here. That was so nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I mean, it's an honor to have you here as well. I want to jump into the event. Autism In The D, Sunday's Autism Day Walk covers 1.3 miles.
Yes.
It symbolizes the 1 in 31 children diagnosed with autism. What does that number mean to you personally?
The number means to me a lot. It means we need more access. We need more everything for these kiddos. When my oldest son was diagnosed in 2019, I believe the statistics were 1 in 59.
Wow.
So we have jumped and continue to jump. And, 2 years ago was 1 in 36. So things are climbing as if it's an epidemic, but it's not being talked about as if it's an epidemic.
And do you attribute that to just better research or better, funding for research?
All of that research, funding, more access to diagnosticians. One of these days I'm going to be able to say that right. But just, that access and the environment's changed. The air that we breathe is different. The food that we eat is different.
Yeah.
A lot is different.
Yeah, which are all factors that are contributing to the increases. Talking about this weekend, of course, coming up, what can families expect beyond the walk itself? I saw it was from like 12 to 3.
Yeah, so we have a host of autism-related vendors from different ABA companies, different local resources, different autism vendors who have merch and different toys and items. We'll have 2 bounce houses. We'll have our sensory tent that Autism In The D provides to make all events inclusive. So we'll have our 10 by 20 sensory tent with our trained RBTs to make sure that if there's any kiddos who are overwhelmed, that we provide those stimulants. We have noise canceling headphones. We have it all. Every year we try to grow and make it more inclusive. When we get feedback, like, why didn't we have this? I make sure we implement it the next year because we want to make sure everyone is welcome and involved.
I love that. So you launched Autism In The D in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
What were those early days like trying to build community during such an isolating time? I mean, we were all locked in place. Where did you start?
I started by making a flyer.
Wow.
My background is in graphic and web design, and I was like, I need somebody who I can talk to who understands. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person feeling this way. My mom couldn't help me mom. My friends couldn't help me mom who were parents because it's different when you're raising a neurodivergent child. So I made a flyer and I said, if you're a special needs parent and you want to vent, meet me here. And we have grown from there. We still have some of those first timers who still come out to all of our events. They've created their own communities and created their own villages from Autism In The D. And I just love it because we're continuing to grow, and I'm all about collaboration versus competition. So I love to see that we have reached, it was started at 7 people meetup. Now our Facebook group has 4,000 people in it. So we have grown so much.
In just 6 years.
Yes.
That's amazing. So when you meet other parents at your events, what do you see in their eyes that reminds you of your own journey?
The fact that they can find somebody they can relate to. It is so comforting to know somebody who knows what you're dealing with. It's so hard when you think that, a neurotypical parent is just going home after work, and we're not. We're dealing with so much more raising these neurodivergent children. And so being able to have that safe space, so many parents reach out to me and they make me feel like this famous person. I'm like, I'm just a lost mama, just like y'all. Like, I am not special. I am trying to constantly figure it out.
But you say you're not special. Of course, it's from your own perspective, but opening up your own personal journey to others was such a huge deal for so many people in the city. Yeah. So when you hear that coming from parents or families, what does it mean for you to create that space where families don't have to explain themselves?
I'm just grateful that God chose me to see fit. My co-chair for our board texted me this morning, just this heartfelt message just pouring into me, and I'm like, I am so grateful that I am able to reach who I was trying to reach, and in that same breath, I'm being poured into from the same people who I was looking to pour into. I'm just forever, ever grateful that I am on this mission and this drive, and I'm just being obedient and being a servant.
And we're going to get back to some of that, the work that you've been able to do with Autism in the D. But I do want you to take us back to 2019. What was going through your mind when your eldest son, your firstborn child, was diagnosed with autism?
There was a lot. There were things I noticed, and so it was me going to ask the doctors questions. The doctors weren't giving me questions. Yeah. It was me poking, like, let's go get this evaluation. Let's go get these things checked. We started off with speech, and then we grew like, okay, I'm not seeing any progress here. What do we need to do? And it was me jumping the ball and staying on top of things versus the doctors. And it was daunting. Honestly, yes. It's a daunting process. And I'm somebody who believes in second and third opinions. So 3 evaluations is daunting, not on just myself, but my child as well. Scheduling, insurance, figuring out what's covered, figuring out where do you go next once you do get the diagnosis. Doctors say, okay, your child's autistic, go to ABA. That's not the fit for everybody.
And what's ABA?
ABA is applied behavior analysis. Mm-hmm. That is my minor. I'm a recent Wayne State grad.
Congratulations.
So shout out to y'all. But it is the data and background behind autism, and it's the therapy that's recommended. It's the number one recommended. You cannot get ABA without an autism diagnosis. Okay. Even though everybody has behavior, so I hope they're working on that.
Yeah.
But it's just that behavior therapy, and it has such a bad rep in the past, and ABA has transformed so much. It's so much more ethical. It's so much more with the client in mind. And that has helped shape so much. But doctors say go to ABA, and it's not as easy as 1, 2, 3 as they make it seem, like you can click your fingers and just go to ABA. No, you have to jump through insurance hoops. You have to jump through school hoops if your child's in school. There's so many things that aren't being explained to the parents, and that's doing a disservice to the child.
And I love that you brought up ABA, because that was a conversation that I was having earlier actually with one of the producers. Really? They wanted to know a little bit more about that because of the bad rep that it received in the past. And you said it's come a long way.
I love ABA. I think everybody has behaviors. Literally, everybody has behaviors. And what can we do? Why is that person doing something? Let's figure out what the function is. Maybe they're doing that because the light is too bright, the sound is too, whatever it is, let's figure out the function of the behavior. Everybody has behaviors. That's why I love ABA. And, back in the day, before ethics got involved, before we had a board, there were a lot of things that were done wrong because they did not know any better. And you don't know until you know, unfortunately. And unfortunately, humans had to be the test subjects, and that is really disheartening. But we have learned and we've grown from there. ABA world, I love, like, my future in a long time, I want to work on the ethic boards and just do ethics of ABA because I love it so much.
And I have questions to this love and this passion that you've been able to find. For a lot of folks who aren't aware in general, for your everyday life, like, what does the world look like when you are supporting children with autism?
So I also work as a community liaison and do intake for an ABA company. So I'm like that first connection that parents get. And I recently stepped into this role, and I love it. I love it so much. I don't even like jobs. I love it so much. And I'm still completing my hours to become a BC ABA because that's what I went to Wayne for. But being that first point of contact when parents call and letting them know, hey, I have two of my own at home, it literally eases the tension on the phone and it helps shape the conversation. And I love being able to give lived personal experience to parents who are lost. So I love it. I love it.
I mean, you are in a position that is like you said, like you're just following spirit. You're following God and His message and His word.
It's all favor. The way I graduated in December and landed this job in March, that's all favor. Hey, favor ain't fair. God is good.
God is good. So you've got the parental point of view and the behavioral therapy training as well. What do people misunderstand the most about autism?
That if you've seen one case of autism, you've seen one. I live at home with a level 3 and a level 1. And completely two different opposite ends of the spectrum. My oldest son, he is considered level 3. He is considered non-conversational. I don't like the term nonverbal because they're not nonverbal. They're just non-conversational. And he is what we also consider a just thought language processing, which is a different type of communication. He is a GLP-6 versus my middle son. He is a level 1 autistic. He also has ADHD, and he is a GLP level 3. So he speaks in scripts a lot. Our conversations sometimes look at scripts. Like if I tell him something, like something he doesn't want to go do, he'll say, "Oh boy." But he's scripting that from somewhere, but that's how he communicates. So the spectrum is so wide, and it's a spectrum.
It's a spectrum. I think about my nephew. He'll be 6 this year actually, and he is starting to converse a lot more. And one of the things he does is the script. So you just helped explain something to me. Thank you so much for that.
No problem.
But before we get to the impact on autism within the Black community, I want to ask you one quick question before we go to break. How has being an autism mom changed the way you see yourself, not just as a parent, but as a person?
I try not to let the identity of being an autism mama be my identity. Just like I try not to let autism be my children's identity. Yeah. When my oldest was diagnosed, I was like, well, he's still what we named him, regardless. Like he's still a Scorpio. He's still all these things before autism reaches. So autism is just a part of my journey. I'm grateful to be able to walk on it and lead others in it because autism parents do suffer from fight or flight constantly with these high cortisol levels. And I try to remind people to walk in faith.
This is the Metro. I'm Tia Graham. We're talking about Autism in the D and the 6th annual Autism Day Walk. Our guest is founder of Autism in the D, Tiera Moultrie. And we're going to continue this conversation after this quick break. This is the Metro. On 1019 WDET FM. I'm Tia Graham. My guest is Tiera Moultrie, founder of Autism in the D, and we're talking about the 6th annual Autism in the D Weekend of Inclusivity that's coming up. I do want to jump back into this conversation and get into autism in the Black community, because that was one thing we talked about just a little bit briefly when we had our conversation before this conversation. But I just think about the unique challenges that Black families face when it comes to an autism diagnosis. What were some of the disparities that you saw early on?
Not personally, but from a lot of people within the group, I have learned, number one, getting a diagnosis is hard to come by.
Yeah, why?
Let's talk about the city of Detroit with the lack of resources for transportation. If you want to get a diagnosis locally, 9 times out of 10, that's a year-long wait list. If you go to the suburbs, that's a wait list as well, but it's also a distance added to it. So now you're dealing with all these, scarcities because you don't have a place to get a diagnosis. Your child has to be in school legally by the age of 6. So you put your child into a local DPS school. DPS says, oh, we can't handle your child's behaviors, so now we're going to send them home. Oh, what am I going to do about work if my child is home every day? It's a cycle, and it's such a sad cycle. The IEPs are daunting because the language they use is distasteful. They copy and paste. They don't even put in the effort and work. I've seen it. It's ridiculous.
And what is IEP?
IEP is an individual education plan. Anybody who needs that extra support, whether it's for medical, mental, whatever it needs. I have a friend who's a doctor, and she had IEP. IEPs don't mean anything but to get that extra support that you might need.
So hearing some of that and thinking about, the barriers just that naturally are happening right now within the city, how do stigma or misunderstanding within the community impact families as well?
Ooh, the mental health in the Black community, we're talking about it more.
Yeah.
So, it's less stigma, but, I think a lot of grandmas aren't saying, oh, that baby's going to talk when they're going to talk. We're getting past that now.
Yeah.
We're getting past, oh, that baby isn't talking. Let's go get that baby evaluated. Let's go check out some things. But, when my oldest son was diagnosed, that's what I was told. And then I found out, oh, my husband, you didn't talk until you were 3. Nobody told me that. Yeah. Nobody was discussing that because it was something that was shunned upon. But if we had those conversations, just imagine how many people are underdiagnosed as adults now, especially Black women. We're high rates of underdiagnosis because, our anxiety looks like aggression. Mm-hmm. If we get anything riled up, oh, we're angry, not our mental is shot, now we're burnt out and fried inside, none of that. Oh, no, she's angry.
Yeah. I'm thinking about just so many things. It hit a chord.
Like, we can go left, right with this because there's so much that the Black community is missing when it comes to mental health. But I can say we are making the strides and having the conversations to make sure that we change that.
I've heard within my own family, the baby will talk when they want to. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, I think we need to possibly go a little bit further with this. Yeah. But, it eventually did, pan out that people in the family have started to really look a little bit deeper, which is great to see. And I think a lot of families are like you said, are starting to.
Early intervention is key, though. My thing, we can't get the answers unless we ask the questions. Why avoid the questions when we can get our babies the resources they need?
Exactly. And another thing that we talked about as well was just the labeling of young Black boys, especially in this particular day and age. Why was it an issue for you? Or were you afraid to have that label for your kids?
Not more so afraid. I just wanted to make sure it was correct.
Yeah.
Especially because these labels come with checks for people. Not a check for me. We make too much in our household to get any support. We don't get Medicaid. Yeah. We don't get SSI. We don't get any support because we quote unquote make too much, and that's crazy to me because we get bills every month from ABA. But neither here or there. Like, it takes. The labels and a third opinion to me is accurate and needed because we want to be sure that these kiddos aren't being mislabeled. I had a friend down in Texas. She fought for her baby. They told her baby was autistic. She got that baby's iron levels tested, got that baby iron replaced where it needs to be, and found out that she had a hearing defect. Wow. She wasn't autistic. She had a hearing issue. And so that's where I think it takes the doctors learning how to ask the proper questions instead of just saying, hey, this is X, Y, and Z. Let's do some digging. We're in the process right now of on the wait list to get genome tested at U of M Ann Arbor because we want answers, and the doctors aren't the ones making us look for the answers. But of course you're not, because you're getting paid from the FDA. Of course you're not.
It's the system that we're in right now.
Systematic cycles.
So let's talk about the strides you've mentioned in your community work. What gets people to think differently? Like, have you found any approach that changes minds or hearts?
I try to approach every parent and play meetup that we do offer and do to others so that it's welcoming to all. People always ask, is there an age limit? I try not to put age limits on it. My oldest is only 9, so I can only know so much with things, but I try to make sure it's welcoming to all because I don't believe, like when they ask me what's inclusivity, I can't limit anybody. My oldest likes to watch Sesame Street with my 1-year-old, and I think that's perfectly fine. Yeah. Like, it's not an issue in my house.
Yeah. And do you feel like your experience personally was reflected anywhere else before you started Autism in the D?
No. Especially not a Black or brown face.
Yeah.
There are plenty of different ethnicities as far as influencers go for autism moms in the world, and they have all the hype and all the praise, but seeing somebody that looks like me doing it, especially locally, was not. There is one that I did find, Colors of Autism, Camille. She's a great one. Mm-hmm. She was somebody who I was pointed to in my beginning years, and she has been a great point of resource anytime I have reached out.
How can we normalize conversations about autism, not just within the Black community itself, but overall?
I think it just starts with one of education.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not being upset when there's that ignorance, because we don't know until we know. And it doesn't take a snapping at it. It takes a redirection. Let's educate. Reach one, teach one is really, really needs to go back to, because if 1 in 31 are on the spectrum, everybody should be having that conversation. At least everybody should know the basics of what autism is.
Yes. And, briefly, I want to go back because you talked about, your sons are on different levels.
Mm-hmm.
If you could break down that for just a moment, like level 1, level 2.
Yeah. So levels are level of support. When my oldest was diagnosed, there were not levels. But when my second was diagnosed, they had these levels.
I'm sorry. In 2019, just 7 years ago, there were no levels to kind of talk. There were no spectrum levels. Oh, my goodness.
No, but the levels came out to help kiddos get the levels of support that they need.
Yes.
Level 3 requires that more support. And it kind of took away those terms that people didn't like, high functioning and low functioning.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what the levels came in. So level 1, 2, and 3, more support, severe support. I would consider my oldest son severely autistic, needing that, you can't leave him. You can't not watch your eye on him all the time. You got to watch him. He's sneaky and fast. And he's a Scorpio, so he's sneaky.
I was going to say he's mysterious. He's already doing stuff undercover.
Mm-hmm.
That's, Scorpios. But, as we continue the conversation, of course, and kind of get back to Autism in the D, I just think about, your relationship with your family, the community you've been able to build, and the work that you've been able to do in these last 6 years. You've already said people consider you a public figure and you don't see yourself as one. Yeah. But it's happening. It's where you are now. So if your sons could fully understand the impact you're making right now, what would you hope they'd say to you?
That I'm making them proud.
Yeah.
Because they can't fully explain, and I don't think that they'll be able to wrap their heads around until we do have this space open and they can come every day and they're like, oh, this is ours. I would just that they love me. I do everything I do for them, and they don't even realize how cool their mom is, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because, again, I'm not just helping my kids, I'm helping so many more.
You are helping so many other families. And, once again, we had that big conversation earlier, not conversation, but I brought up the word legacy and like what this means to build a legacy. But so twofold question. The first one is, what does it mean for your boys, your family, to leave this legacy or have this legacy here for them?
To me, it means that they have a foundation that's already laid for them. And I think that my mom tried to do that for me, and her mom tried to do that for me. I do come from a line of entrepreneurs. I'm grateful to be on the journey, and I'm grateful that because I was doing things before this. I'm grateful that this just aligned, and I'm, again, being obedient.
Yes. And I often think about, too, just you working full-time. You're a mom of 3. You're the founder of Autism in the D. Mm-hmm. When you feel exhausted, when the work feels a little bit too heavy, what reminds you why you started Autism in the D?
My lostness. My lostness reminds me. The parents I serve reminds me. The kids I serve remind me constantly. Because I'm always looking. There's so many answers that still have to be answered. Like, I'm not done. I'm constantly researching for my own child. Like, the work continues. And people ask me all the time, how do you do it? I don't drink coffee. I'm not a caffeine head. This is obedience. This is God-driven. I try to get 8 hours of sleep. Sometimes I don't. I didn't last night, but you still have to show up where the room needs you.
Autism in the D is this weekend. It's the 6th annual Weekend of Inclusivity, and you're also fundraising for a possible gym, Inscape.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about Inscape Detroit?
So excited. Yes, Inscape Detroit will be the city of Detroit's first adaptive and inclusive community center, and will also house the sensory gym that will have the adaptive equipment that is not just for children on the spectrum, but all special needs, cerebral palsy, different functionings, whatever it is. We plan to have that adaptive equipment as well as this trained staff to properly work with these kiddos. So we cannot wait to get this space open. And the community is fundraising hard this year. So shout out to you guys. Thank you so much. We're almost at our goal, and we haven't even made it to walk day. God is good. But we are opening up this safe space. We're creating teams this year for our walk. So that's why people are like, I was like, sell this like you're selling the popcorn or the Girl Scout cookies, everybody. And they are going hard, okay? We have awards for the first, second, and third place winners. We have a lot in store. And then the day before, which is going to be Saturday, the 11th, we're going to have this hands-on experience of what Inscape is going to be, because we have been fundraising for the past 3 years. So we wanted to give back to the community. So this is a donation-based entry event where we're literally going to have our sensory zone, we're going to have our play area, and we're also tapping into each of the 5 senses. So we'll have a taste area. One of my church members, she went to school for nutrition, so she's setting up a whole hands-on experience for the kids. We're going to have a silent DJ to tap into those sound senses, but make sure it's not overwhelming for the kids. And then we also have a blackout tent that's going to house a light show so people can see those visuals. So I'm super excited to bring my thoughts to life this weekend. It's going to be a time, and again, it's donation-based entry. If you don't have $1 and you want to come, you can still come, because why would I tell you no? Everybody is welcomed. Okay, join us.
I love this. I'm wanting to literally message my niece right after this so she knows what to do this weekend. Tiera Moultrie is the founder of Autism In The D. This weekend, the 6th annual Autism In The D Weekend of Inclusivity is happening. Saturday, the Inscape Detroit pop-up experience at Chandler Park Fieldhouse in Detroit. And Sunday is the Autism Day Walk at DMC Children's Hospital Brush Mall. There will be free parking, and that walk begins at noon. Tiera, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you for having me, Tia. I appreciate you so much.
Coming up, are the standardized tests we use to measure intelligence getting it wrong? We'll dive in after this break. You all stay right there. This is the Metro.